Please. In accordance with South Carolina Code of Laws, 1976, section 30-4-80D, as amended, all local media were duly notified at the time, date, and place and agenda of this meeting. All right, meeting has been called to order. Most are present. We're missing two right now from the committee room, Sue Sagby and Jody. So for the agenda, the first order of business is going to be our guest speaker. We're here on the Low Country Legal Volunteers, from the Low Country Legal Volunteers, and are here to give us a briefing on Ayers Properties.
Yeah.
Correct?
Introductions.
Okay.
I know some of these wonderful people here who educated. I'm going to start with Christian Cato, who is the fellow on the right in the light blue shirt. Christian is the market manager with, I say that term with some other title, I'm sure, South Atlantic Bank. His bank is a member of the Federal Home Loan Bank Network. They're part and parcel of bringing this grant that Low Country Legal Volunteers is operating. So, Christian, if you'd introduce the team and tell them a little bit about what you guys are trying to achieve with that grant.
Yeah, so last year, the Federal Home Loan Bank was a group of banks that commercial local banks are members of that supplies liquidity in the system. Part of their mandate is to give away a certain percentage of their net income to grants for Ayers property and affordable housing projects. And so there was a grant opportunity for Ayers property that I got Ann and Kay were involved and submitted their application, and they were funded for a $200,000 grant to support Ayers property prevention services, which would be wills for families. And so Ayers property isn't just the house in the northwest quadrant. It's an ongoing potential problem for families that don't have wills in place, could potentially become an property problem. So it's not just a certain group that Ayers property affects. It could affect anyone who has an heir and has assets. And so that program or that grant was designed to prevent Ayers property issues. And then we've been working on cleaning up Ayers property, existing Ayers property. And there's a couple of programs there, and can talk a little bit more about those.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. I'll stand up briefly. If I can pass these around. Brochures and my card with my cell phone on there in case y'all want to follow up. So I get to be the director/managing attorney of Low Country Legal Volunteers. We're honored to be here today, but the first order of business that I have is to thank Christian and South Atlantic Bank and the Federal Home Loan Bank for funding this very vital and important work. A little bit about Low Country Legal Volunteers. We provide free legal services. We've done so. We're going into our 26th year of service now. For low-income folks living at or below 200% of the federal poverty guidelines. We're honored to do that work. We do everything from family law to the civil wills and healthcare powers of attorney. But we also do eviction defense and we take housing so people can live in state homes and tax stability. And I'm honored to get to work with a couple of wonderful subject matter experts, one being Sharice Handy of the Heritage Law Firm. She is working with us on a contract basis, thanks to that generous grant that we received. She truly is an Ayers property expert and does this work all day long. So we're able to get direct legal representation for matters we can't take on, for Sharice to take on, get people's titles quieted, things that is moving forward, and complicated estate planning, putting properties into trust to protect state family land. Essentially, Ayers property is family land at the end of the day. And then I'm blessed to work with Alex Graham. He's our staff attorney, but really he does wills all day long. He is helping people get simple wills. He's on the phone all day, asking questions of people, getting the information we need so we can prepare their will. We've done multiple clinics in the double digits as far as the free wills clinic go. However, we're also able to do these services in office or go to people if need be, who need these services. So I will turn it over to Sharice Handy to talk about what is Ayers Property, since she is a true expert in this work.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Just before we get going, I needed to let you know that, I have an appointment in Charleston at the hospital at 1, so I will have to be leaving here at about 11 or shortly after, so I just wanted to, make that, and I thought I also heard, as a point of order, somebody's mentioning that they may have had something, with the minutes from past meeting, whether you wanted to cover that, at this point.
Hey, and when we start this committee business, I wanted to get our volunteers here through first, and then we will approve the minutes from the last meeting
Okay.
and we'll go through that stuff.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
Thank you for having us. Thank you for the wonderful introduction. Again, my name is Sharice Handy, and my primary focus is Ayers Property, clearing land title, basically anything that deals with dirt and debt. So that's real estate transaction, quiet title actions, property disputes, easements, wills, trust, probate. I've been in this industry for going on 30 years now. Prior to becoming an attorney, I was deemed a legal expert in South Carolina courts on land titles, so I know a little something about Ayers Property. So what is Ayers Property? Ayers Property is any land improvements, any property that has passed to the owners. However, there is no evidence of ownership, meaning that owner may own interest in Ayers Property, but they can't prove it. Essentially, you cannot prove who owns Ayers Property because there's no will, or there's no probate administration, or there's no court order to discern who the heirs are. Sometimes Ayers Property can be property that only has 2 to 3 owners. And sometimes I've dealt with one that has 149 heirs. Ayers Property, as you can imagine, is a very problematic status for property ownership, because first of all, you cannot prove who owns the property. Therefore, the owners of this property, they cannot contract to bind the property to sell, because again, we have no legal evidence of who owns the property. They cannot utilize the property to get financing or mortgages. And that is not only problematic to the owners of Ayers Property, but think about these surrounding owners of other property. So if you have a situation with property and you cannot discern who the owners are, and of course, if the property is dilapidated, those heirs or the owners of that property cannot utilize financing to improve the property. Therefore, that property could essentially and indirectly affect the property value of surrounding properties as well. So Ayers Property does not only affect heirs who own the property, it affects community. Secondly, Ayers Property is also problematic because it's vulnerable. First, the tax notices, most of the time, they're in the name of the deceased owner. Why is that? Because again, there is no evidence of Ayers Property, no probate administration, no probated will, or a title clearing action to tell the county who the owners are. So of course, as far as the county goes, it's still in the name of the deceased owner because there's no record of death. That's problematic because if the property is sold at tax sale and one of the heirs want to redeem the property, there's a law, South Carolina law, that says the county does not have to accept tax payments from a person who is a non-owner. And of course, the property is still the deceased. So the heirs at that time cannot redeem their family property from tax sale. Also, it creates family discourse because the responsibility of heirs property is it's attributed to all of the heirs. But of course, if you don't know who all of the heirs are, who's responsible for the taxes?
That's a good question.
Yes,
I'm sorry to interrupt. During a tax auction, if one of the heirs decides to bid on that property and to take ownership of that property by bidding on it and winning at a tax auction, then they legally get the property instead of anybody else?
no,
Okay,
unfortunately, which is why, another reason why heirs property is problematic. And thank you for bringing that tax situation to the forefront. At a tax sale, for example, a long time ago, way back when, the auctioneer would ask the bidders or the participants of the tax sale to not bid on heirs property. Now, there is no law that says that. It was done back in the days out of common courtesy for the heirs, so they could bid on their property and keep it in the family. However, that doesn't happen. Well, investors, they totally ignore it. And if you're at a tax sale and you're bidding on heirs property, you won't outbid an investor. That's just most of the time they end up losing the property. But back to your question, if an heir bid on heirs property at a tax sale, there's this case, it's called Watson v. Little. And that case says, if an heir bids on heirs property, he or she bid on the heir's property in trust for the other heirs and themselves. So it creates a constructive trust. Oh, the times I had when heirs bid on heirs property and they have a tax sale deed and they say, hey, I own it now, I want to sell it. Oh.
but if I bid on the same property and buy it, then I can do anything I want.
As long as you're not an heir, you have to be a
Okay.
third party. Yes, a way around that, though, if there's heirs property and if an heir was 100% interest in the property and a third party who is not an heir bid on the property, and then they sell or transfer that property to the heir, then the heir would own it 100% without the constructive trust because this third party had bid on it. Now, be careful with that because there's ethical issues and it cannot be, hey, it has to be an arm's length transaction. Sorry.
Ladies first, go ahead.
I thought I read someplace that if somebody bought an heirs property in a tax sale, that the heirs had up to 2 years to be able to contest that and get the property back.
Yes and no. If someone bids on heirs property at tax sale, there is a 2-year statute of limitation from the tax sale. Okay, that 2-year statute of limitation only applies if the tax sale was not procedurally correct. Okay, so they have 2 years to contest the tax sale. So that's probably what. So that's why after you buy property from tax sale, there's a 2-year time limit after the tax sale to clear title in order to get clear title. So as soon as you get your tax deed, you can't clear the title because this process says that the previous owner or the defaulting taxpayer has up to 2 years to contest the tax sale. Yes, sir.
Are there provisions that allow the heirs to petition the property instead of selling all to satisfy outstanding tax? Can you petition it and sell a portion of it to retain at least the other portion of the property? Is that permissible?
That is permissible. That is permissible. But keep in mind, if you have heirs property, one of the foundational issue with heirs property is you don't know who owns 100% interest. And there is no legal document that is recorded in the public records to discern who the owner. So if you are selling any portion of heirs property, you must have all of the heirs sign off on the deed to the purchaser unless the purchaser would not acquire 100% interest. So it goes back to square one. Heirs property, you cannot sell on the open market because you don't know who the owners are.
But initially, if the person who receives the notice or the persons who receive the notice agree that they want to petition, they can do that, and then they'll have to deal with the other aspects of it.
No, no, sir. They would have to go through a quiet title action first to get a court order to discern who the legal heirs are, and then they can partition the property.
Right.
You're welcome. Yes.
So just for clarification, so I'm at a tax sale and I bid on heirs property and I get it. They have 2 years to redeem it? Or
No,
1 year to
they have
redeem it?
1 year to redeem it,
Okay,
but 2 years after the date of the tax sale to conduct the tax sale itself.
so then let's say they don't redeem it in that year process. Then if I go to sell it, I still have to quiet the title,
Yes,
correct?
you would have
In
to.
order to get a full warranty deed.
Yes.
For the next owner to have title insurance.
Yes, it is a quiet title action, but the technical term is confirming the tax sale. So basically, you're going to court and said, hey, I bought this property from tax sale. Here's the tax sale file, every aspect in this procedural portion of the tax sale has been properly executed, and then the court would confirm the tax sale, and you would be able to get a general warranty deed. It's more complicated and nuanced than that, but that's the gist of it. Yes, sir.
Thank you for being here, Sharice and Alex.
Thank you.
The heirs property issue, obviously complex, and there's lots of misunderstanding. This group is comprised of people who've been pretty engaged in things in the historic district. You can see the level of misinformation and confusion. We are here as a task force for 2 neighborhoods in the historic district, and I know you work in both Beaufort and Jasper counties, maybe Hampton and Colleton as well. But I say you, okay, volunteer, and I think your grant covers multiple counties. In the 2 areas that we're focused on, which I'll call the focus areas, there are between 33 and 60 vacant and dilapidated houses. We think that, and it kind of depends on who did the survey and when they did it. And thanks for doing the estate planning, because that will help keep houses from dropping into the area of property. That's what we think. Somewhere between 40 and 60% of those may be tied up in heirs property soon. How do we achieve our objective of helping the owner to revitalize those properties or replace those properties if it's tied up in heirs? So it looks to me like we need to help those guys into some sort of quiet title act. I'd like to hear your opinion on that. And then the follow-up issue is, if you find there's a historic level of distrust because people felt like they have lost their property when they've gone through title actions, any advice you might give us on how we would approach the owners of these properties, how we would help walk them to this, so that I think, Christian, what I understand from your grant purpose with the Federal Home Loan Bank, it's their property. They ought to be able to use it. If they can't get a mortgage and they can't get insurance, can't sell it, we deny the benefit of owning that property. We'd like to help them capture that benefit and do what they can with it and achieve our goals of improving these 2 neighborhoods in this area. Any advice about how to help them get where they're going, help them get where we're going, and deal with whatever distrust is out there?
Based on my experience with heirs property, especially in that regard and the distrust, I find that if the heirs are approached as in the aspect of it's your property, you don't want your property because they're skeptical and they're like that. We know about the distrust and the nature of that. So again, my opinion is the approach should be based on securing their ownership in the property and their clear titles, and also conveying the negatives. What could happen if the property stays in that status? For example, vulnerability, a partition by sale, losing it at tax sale. So when I consult with heirs and when I find that works, if you approach them as, and this is your property, it's not benefiting you. In fact, it's a liability because of the heir's property status. You're only paying taxes on it. And you cannot utilize it to generate wealth or stability. And if anything happens to you and it passes to your loved ones, it becomes even more complicated and more expensive to resolve. It has worked for me in the past, so maybe if could incorporate those messages in your approach.
And you can see why we are so blessed to be able to hire Sharice and her expertise, and have her at our local free community clinics, whether they're wills or heirs property education. And I think one solution would be hosting a community meeting open to the public led by Sharice and our team, myth busting, giving free information, giving that knowledge and empowerment from a completely neutral third party. And that's what this grant's allowed us to do, is to get out into Beaufort, Jasper, and Hampton counties, have town halls, have the free wills clinic in addition. But a lot of it is education, and what Sharice and Alex do is myth busting. You know, there's a lot of smart people, but there's a lot of myths and mistrust that need to be broken down.
What we think, the concept you're talking about is maybe helpful, and it was recommended by a Northwest Quadrant Study Group back in 2009. Providing free or low-cost legal counseling to help with quiet title of access to the property. If we were to create a budget, is there someone that does that for free, that may not have 100% of the heirs identified or able to participate? Is there some estimate on the amount we would need if we were going to do in-homes or something of that sort?
Right, I think we can provide that information to you. We'd be honored to do that because we do want to continue this work beyond the grant, and keep this work going. And I think we've gotten such great inroads with the various communities we serve, including Beaufort County, Northern Beaufort County. We'd love to be able to fund that and continue the work. I mean, that would be a great way for y'all to support us, in addition to referring people you know who need these services currently. Partnering up with us on some clinics, things along those lines. That would be amazing. So happy to work with y'all on that. That would be great.
You mentioned the term petition for sale.
Yes, partition by sale.
Would you walk through how that might affect people? I've seen it happen and it may have changed since then. Can you tell if I were to go buy 6% of somebody's property, what can I do?
Oh, I'll be delighted to tell you. Because the title with heirs property is spread out among the family members. You may know who the heirs are, you may not know who the heirs are. And how these partition by sale usually happen is the developer or the third party or the interested investor would contact an heir that individual knows who has an interest, okay? And so usually the heir does not live on the property, they have no sentimental value attached to the property, and you approach them, hey, I want to purchase your interest for $500. Like, hey, you know, free money, of course. So you would then obtain a quitclaim deed from that heir. And South Carolina law says any co-tenant has the right to partition. Okay, so once the individual purchased that heir's interest, then they become a co-tenant along with the other heirs. So because now they're a co-tenant, they have that right to partition the property by sale. So it's done through the courts. And what the individual will do is file an action for a partition by sale. And basically the action says, hey, court, I'm a co-tenant in this property. I own 6% interest. I do not want my interest in property. Instead, I want my interest in money. And the court would probably do one of three things. They would give the other heirs the opportunity to purchase the partitioning party's interest first at market value. And that's where the problem comes in, because most heirs are land rich and cash poor. So they won't be able to pay that investor or third party 6% of the market value of their heirs' property. So then the court would say, well, since there are no heirs who are who are willing to purchase the third party's interest, then we would list this property with a broker and have it sold on the open market. The property is sold, and then the heirs, along with the third party, will receive their portion of the net proceeds, which is equivalent to their ownership in the heirs property. And the third party has a warranty deed. What usually happens then, for some reason, the person who purchased the property at the partition by sale action ends up selling it back to the original party who partitioned it to have it sold. So that is why, one of the reasons why heirs property is so vulnerable, because any heir, known or unknown, could sell their interest or transfer their interest to a third party, and that third party would have all the rights that that heir would have had, which would give them the right to go to court and partition the property. Now, if the property is large enough to be subdivided, and if the heir says, hey, we don't want our property sold, it's large enough to partition this land in kind, so partition in kind, cut out what is equivalent to this 6% interest, deed it to that person, and deed us or give us a court order saying we own the remaining parcel. So in that regard, the property isn't sold, the entire property isn't sold. The third party who has the 6% has 6% of land that's cut out.
That's a lot of information. It's very helpful, but my mind can't process as much as yours.
So you have to stop me because I could go on and on and on about this.
In the focus area that we're working with, predominantly relatively small lots that either have a house or a cottage on, maybe vacant, dilapidated, we're focusing on. The question I was gonna ask you was if there were 3 errors identified and other errors missing, but those 3 errors had a cumulative 18%. One of those heirs sold and the petitioning process went through and that property was sold. The amount that would be set aside for the non-present, non-identified, unfound heirs, what happens to that money?
That money is deposited or should be deposited in with the clerk of court. Some attorneys would hold it in their escrow account. I don't know why anyone would want to do that, but the most practical way is to deposit the unknown heirs with the clerk of court, and it's up to the unknown heirs to find the money, basically. But if, you know, in the city of Beaufort, most likely, they're small lots or they're single family homes. You cannot fairly subdivide a lot with a single family home, so the court would almost always sell it.
So the money could stay in that escrow account with the clerk account in court forever.
I think it's up to 7 years, I believe, and then it escapes to the state.
And then it goes to the state.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you guys so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just just briefly, I do want to shout out to Alex Graham. As I said, he is on the front lines. He is our point of contact for anyone that needs a will. So now that you've invited us in, Dick, you're part of the family. We are partners in this work. So I would love for y'all to follow us on Instagram, Facebook at Low Country Legal Volunteers. Check out our free clinics coming up. There are many. lowcountrylegalvolunteers.org, and Alex is about to give you his work cell. Sorry to put you on the spot because he takes calls directly from people that are in need of wills or information related to their property or those issues. So y'all are our trusted partners now, and we want to be your trusted partner as far as serving people. Our grant does end in September, so we will be looking for further support to continue the work and get to work with great people like Alex and Sharice and others.
My number is 843-295-2757.
What was the last 4?
2757.
Read the whole thing, that's what you were.
843-295-2757.
Okay.
And what's your last name again, Alan?
Graham, like Graham Cracker.
Okay.
Yeah.
very easy to remember. So just keep a lookout for clinics coming up too.
Come to see you asking for will and estate planning. Are you finding that when they get there, they don't, they're heirs and they don't own 100% of the property? Is that happening?
I'm finding sometimes they don't know just the basics of estate planning and probate administration, and we don't know what we don't know. I mean, I didn't know what probate court was until I went to law school, so it's understandable. I think the three main ways that we've made a big difference is through trust, education, and just doing away with the barriers to getting legal help. The ways that we've done that, one is just getting out in the community and making relationships with community leaders. If they see us over and over at a town hall, if they see us coming to church and speaking at somebody's church, eventually we're earning trust, and they're asking us to come have workshops where we educate folks and kind of do scare them a little bit into, okay, just saying that moving, your granddaughter onto the land and just saying, when I pass away, this is going to be your land. That's not going to get it done, right? We got to do a simple will. If you don't have a will, the state has a will for you, and you probably won't like it. We're just going out and putting it in layman's terms, easy to understand, and trying to scare folks a little bit into, if you want this, if you want generational wealth, if you want this land to stay in your family for generations, these are the things you're going to have to do. And then doing away with the barriers, we're just showing up in people's communities and putting on these wills clinics so that they don't have to travel very far. They get a free, simple will. They just go right next door. So we'll have a clinic in Hampton County and different parts of Jasper County. And we're just continuing to try to make relationships and schedule those events going forward. Yeah,
Bilingual capabilities, I assume.
we do.
Yes.
Yeah, we have a bilingual paralegal. We've also got quite a few volunteers that speak Spanish that are willing to come to the clinics and help out.
Thank you very much. for that.
Next,
Y'all very much.
sorry, one more thing. Go ahead, Nick.
We will hear about the Center Heirs property, and I've worked with her group. They're great job, a lot of people. However, they tell us they will only help people when all of the heirs that own the property unanimously agree they want them to clear title and will unanimously agree they will not sell the property. That's certainly their right to put that on the requirements for their services, but it seems to me that could be a real problem when I was trying to get 30 to 50 houses and buildings in our area, getting the title quiet. Do you have any, am I misinformed or am I correctly informed and there's got to be a better way?
You're not misinformed, and that is correct. With the center, everyone has to be in agreement. How is that problematic? Because some heirs you cannot find. Some heirs are unknown. And to put a restraint on selling property, well, one of the problems with heirs property is that they cannot utilize it as a normal property owner to exercise all of their rights as a property owner. One of those rights is to sell. So putting what we call a restraint on alienation, it hinders the heirs property owners just as if they do not have clear title because they're still constrained. So regardless of, one's perception of it, I think the total goal is to clear title and have these heirs be able to use their property as a full property owner with all of the property rights that comes with property ownership.
Which are, you can live in it, depending on where you are, rent it, or use it however it's properly zoned, or sell it.
Or you can lease to somebody who wants to grow a garden on it, I mean vegetables, but you gotta lease it. There's a problem.
So
Selling
May
isn't just a bad
16th,
thing.
y'all, Penn Center, that's our next Northern Beaufort County Wills Clinic. We will have information. You can take walk-ins who need assistance. So May 16th at the Penn Center from 10 to 2. But people want to call us today at 843-815-1570 or call Alex Graham directly. And go ahead and get signed up for that. But we will have walk-ins. There will be welcome. And these two experts and some volunteers will be there on May 16th.
What was the time again?
10 to 2. We really appreciate this opportunity.
We appreciate you being here very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah, very informative.
You're welcome to stay, but.
You probably don't want to.
Sure, love it.
We wish you all the best for the rest of the meeting.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
I'd like to make a motion to request a proposal from any interested party for a budgetary estimate to clear property values in home. We can get these folks, maybe folks up there. Any interested lawyer or other people interested, we have that, so we'll put it into an estimate going forward if we choose to help. And I don't know how we do it, but I do know if we don't know the number, we will probably not get around to doing it. I think I've heard you say you have to work with some.
Absolutely. We would be honored to do
I'd
that.
like to make that motion.
And
Second that motion. Any discussion?
I don't understand. I
Um,
missed something.
Okay. We have about 20 to 40 houses that maybe area properties. I picked 10 because that's what I think we can do in a year. We want to do it 2 people, we want to do it 4 people. I'm happy to have a bigger number if you want to have a list of minimum of 10 or more. My objective is to get some estimate around it.
So you're proposing to get an estimate of what it might be to clear these properties so they have full
Motion is
title?
to get a budget proposal for clearing the title for up to 10 properties.
Okay, budget proposal.
I like the 10 or more options,
Fine.
because that gives us some flexibility.
How about a minimum of 10? Is that good?
That sounds good to me.
I'll do a second.
Second.
I'd be happy to. All right.
Any more discussion on it? All in favor? Any
Thank
opposed?
you.
Thank
Thank you.
Thanks, y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
All right. Thank
My
you.
apologies.
Okay. Yeah, that was good.
Very,
Very.
very eye opening.
Yeah.
Eye opening is the word.
I find it very disappointing that people that were many years divided and it's difficult from the old property or very difficult to keep property. You now want to do things, make it difficult for them to sell it. It's their property.
Right.
They ought to be able to use it. They want to borrow money to fix the house, want to get insurance.
What's crazy though is that they're paying property taxes, which makes you assume they own the property.
And they assume that you.
Right.
And most of them are paying at 6%, which
Yeah.
means,
Yeah.
right?
You're paying the higher. Yeah.
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 Well, I, that's a big thing. Board of Realtors should give us 30,000.
Okay, all right. My party?
You do it the
All
way
right.
you want. Yes, your party.
Okay, so we have, a little issue with the minutes.
Oh, I caught a couple of things too. Your name?
So we have the minutes from the city, which are
You
in,
know, Diggs.
and it's my party.
I'm sorry.
We have a copy of the minutes from the city, which are wonderful, and they are a verbatim copy of the minutes. I just think they, are a little long. So the proposal that I am putting out here is that we use a abbreviated minutes that contain bulletized information, proposals, motions, who made the motion, seconded, and bullets about the discussion, pass or fail. Any other bullets about important agenda items? But I don't think we need a verbatim transcription. I think that's just a lot of information. And it's all good information, don't get me wrong, the video is available to everybody who would like to revisit. You can go online and watch it. If you would like to get a complete rundown of the whole meeting. But other than that, I think we should go. Now we have Secretary, Mr. Stewart. And we have the city. So the question is, who's going to do and who's keeping the official minutes?
I am perfectly happy for someone else to keep the minutes, but my experience has been personally, that if you don't have something sort of bullet items, what you actually did, the minutes become sort of useless because you have to have hours of going back and trying to find out what's happening. Or that's why I sort of very simple. Put on the front, and the other stuff if you want, but I never look at those minutes that are basically, I'm not sure these are, but I've been to an organization where they ask AI to print out the audio record of the meeting. That's the minutes they choose. I don't find those helpful.
Okay, any other discussion?
Oh, yeah, and I, as far, for me, this is great for me because I can look back exactly what we talked about. Now, you may get a form that you want to present to the board that's condensed. But I think this kind of, minute should be available. So.
The detail you like.
I agree
Yeah.
with Scott, and that, you know, it's great to have the brevity of the short one. But if somebody is really interested and doesn't have the time to listen to a 2-hour meeting, this to me is ideal for them. I mean, if we want the public to know what we're doing,
Be transparent.
be transparent, I think.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
Okay, question then for the city real quick. Go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, the only thing that I noticed with the long version, which I also like, is that, I mean, there were typo errors, and then I noticed that certain words were left out. And for example, in the mission statement, it didn't quite get all the words. At the very end, it says that a cultural and architectural areas, but we had the word heritage in the actual writing. And then up here where it says the Northwest Quadrant Old Common Neighborhood Historic District instead of the historic district. So there were certain words that
If you wouldn't
didn't
mind,
fit.
we'll have to, when you approve it, you need to make a motion about adding.
And I do have a correction, but we'll get to that after.
Yeah, Julie does our minutes, so
Right.
I'm trying to review
Okay.
it now.
So my question now for the city is, are you willing to do both versions?
Abbreviated and told.
Oh,
I don't think you need the abbreviated. I think that, this is actually very good, and the reason it's probably a little bit longer this time is because everybody introduced themselves.
Right, right.
All right, is there a motion on the floor then? Does anybody care to make a motion about which version of the minutes to go with?
I move that we keep the detailed version of the minutes.
Second.
Second, okay. And any other discussion?
No other, and reference, but I didn't get the minutes in advance.
Okay,
So, we don't want to take time of the meeting to go over the minutes, because I think that's waste of time. So if we get this in advance to go over and if we have any questions. we can do that.
What I noticed, Kurt, was that, when you forwarded these minutes to me, the long version, it didn't get addressed to everybody. It got addressed to the secretary, or it got addressed to
oh, okay.
secretary, it only got addressed to the,
I thought there was
Certain
an
people.
email for everyone, it got attached to everyone.
That's what happens with those chains, going with this.
Okay.
Sometimes.
Yeah, 'cause I saw everybody on that chain when I got them initially.
yeah, and I couldn't find that one, but the one that you sent me, I did look at who it got sent to. It was you and her and Tim,
Yeah,
yeah,
I
Okay,
think it was the officers maybe.
yeah.
okay, all right, well, we'll make sure to correct that. Yes.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I think that, your thought process was very good about doing, an abbreviation. Since everybody wants detail, the other option I think that's out there is that either yourself, the secretary, or somebody else could, do a, synopsis, if you will, that has the key issues as a cover page to the minutes, so that people that wanted to, at least just go through the synopsis and hit the key elements of it, they can do that without reading through the whole thing. That's entirely up to, secretaries, what I want to try and accomplish.
Unfortunately, that's a good thing to do, highlight here.
Yeah.
I do have one comment about the local minutes. I think my name is my problem.
Wasn't long enough. It says on here. Wasn't long enough.
But you received a totally second.
I could do it myself in the meeting, but since I wasn't.
Mr. Chair.
Okay,
Okay,
So I totally, I think they just. Both of this,
Yeah. So I keep a kind of a little synopsized thing here, and I will try and put that in there. That'd be great.
okay.
Okay.
How, oh, I guess we need to take a vote.
We do.
Yeah.
I was gonna stop. Okay, we have a motion on the table to adopt using the long version of the minutes provided by the city. All in favor?
I,
Anybody opposed? Okay, passes. With the synopsis at the front, depending on how many hours I have in a day.
and do I need to enter in the minutes and the missing words in the commission statement?
Yeah, I think now you gotta adopt. Right?
Yes, well, and there are some corrections, so.
There's a lot of corrections.
Yes.
That was for me, that was a significant thing.
Okay, and Mr. Blackman's name is spelled wrong. Okay, so,
And my next bill.
and Stacy's name is spelled wrong.
And I'd like to point out that I reside on West Street. I grew up on North Street.
Yeah.
I reside on West Street.
Okay, all right.
I have to say, my name is spelled correctly.
We're going to start calling you George, so.
We,
Uh,
we have, I mean, I'm trying to send minutes out ahead of time and officers to look up. Julia tries to do a good job. There's a lot there, so
Yeah.
mistakes are made.
That's surprising.
Yes.
It's a big thing.
all right. So there will be certain noted changes in here, including adding Mr. Stewart's name, Mr. Washington on West Street. There are some changes in the mission statement that Sue will provide to the city, correct?
Okay.
Any other corrections? please?
Yes, under my description, in 1988, I was not with Historic Beaufort Foundation. I was the Main Street
Okay.
director.
right. You can take that and
Yeah.
provide that change to the city.
I'm like, yeah,
I think the easiest way to do this is to, people who need changes, get them annotated on it, provided by Mr. Freeze, and we will adopt the minutes, not as written, but as amended. Okay. Any other discussion on the minutes from the last meeting?
Well, I can't vote on it because I didn't get to read it in advance, so.
Okay.
Yes,
Do you want us to go through the minutes?
I do not.
Okay,
I just know that I'm gonna.
okay.
why don't we, may I make a suggestion, Mr. Chairman, that we table this until the next meeting and
No.
then vote? No, okay.
We're not gonna table things till the next meeting.
Okay.
That is my one thing I do not want to do. So what I'm asking is that I'm going to make a motion that we adopt these minutes with proposed changes
Correct.
by various individuals, including myself, that we will provide to Mr. Freeze, and then adopt the minutes as that. Seconded?
Second.
You can't take a motion.
Yeah, I can make a motion.
Somebody made that motion, seconded it, right?
Got it.
Okay,
There you go.
anything else? All in favor?
Right.
Any opposed? One abstain or opposed? Okay. Then that's passed. The minutes are done.
Mr. Chairman, before we move on to the next one, I have one more motion I'd like to make.
Okay,
The party that just presented to us on Ayers property talked about the dilemma with property adjacent to that particular property being diminished in value because of vacant or dilapidated or your title or something. I'd like to make a motion that we engage in some process to be determined later to evaluate the impact on neighboring properties from restoring or replacing vacant and dilapidated houses. The reason I say this is because several years ago, and I can talk about that now, or wait like in a second, whichever chair. Several years ago, Jonathan Remke came as an economic, Remke came as a preservation economist and suggested that the price for the houses near the ones that were restored or replaced would be benefited by $50,000 or so. Bill, I think in his efforts feels like that number is probably higher now. And obviously with COVID, I think it is too. But if we're going to be talking to people about their property and talking to the city and the other people about it, if there's a really terrible house and there's 3 houses around it and one on the other side of the street, and each of those houses is affected by, just say, $100,000 in valuation, that's $400,000 valuation benefit to those individuals, just because we're successful in doing what our mission statement calls for us to do. I'd like to find some way where we can agree to that number so that 6 months from now, we're not debating whether it's 40,000, 80,000, some other number. I don't know if it's the board of realtors, I don't know if it's getting appraiser. I'm not suggesting today that we agree to that process. I'm just offering a motion that we agree to undertake the process and agree upon a number.
Can I ask a point of clarification? The purpose of that number is so that we can quantify as a group the success rate that we've had in improving from a dollar perspective, or can you give me a little more information on what that number will be utilized for?
There will be a number of issues to be utilized in the 2009 Northwest Quadrant Study Group report to the city, which these and others were nice enough to pass out. They included in there the development of a redevelopment district and included a creation of a TIF district. TIF district is based on tax and finance. Let's assume we're going to find 40 buildings renovated or replaced. Let's assume the average of those 40 buildings would be $500,000. That's $20 million in financing we're going to need to make this happen. Typical financing, I suspect we will have, will be a segment of equity and a segment of debt. Equity is going to be interesting in that it will be different terms of debt created in the same way. In that report, they recommended passing a TIF district. If we're successful in making these 40 houses happen, and we're successful at that, creating $400,000 in additional value for the city and school district, county, they should help support us by passing a TIF district. Some portion of those funds to be available to do things like impact fees, sidewalks, parking spaces, and other things necessary. So having a structure where we agreed upon that number, that to the financial institutions, elected leadership, required this TIF district is going to be helpful at some point.
Yeah, and a point to note, I happen to manage 2 TIF districts in Florida, but you typically have a large anchor that supports that district. So that will be something that we need to understand.
TIF district,
Yeah.
or that we define one, or we talk about who pays, or TIF district is politically hot button right now.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is in this motion, we agree that the number picks up the house places, and the number of houses around it are going to be impacted possibly by a certain amount. You think there will be incidents where we can measure the actual impact on the ground projects that have taken place. And having that as an agreement with this group allows us to move with a uniform attitude going forward.
I agree. Agree with that.
Yeah, for a kind of question. I'm really slow on it. The young lady, when she spoke, talked about people who are land rich and cash poor. My concern has always been, particularly if we're talking about diversifying the composition of the neighborhood, talk about workforce housing, everyone with money is buying up all the property. Those who don't have money have the property, but can't stay there, and we're not going to have the diversity that we talked about. So my concern, and how do we make the improvements that we want to make, but also make it sustainable for those who don't have the cash, because their income, people who are in fixed income, when their property value goes up and their taxes go up, their income not going up, so they're gonna lose. So you're putting a cycle.
Right.
So
I think your concerns are valid,
but this is
but
not.
I think they're separate from proposal that Dick is making. I think the proposal that Dick is making will help undergird and support where you're trying to go with what your concerns are. But I think that they're 2 different issues at this point. I think that his may be supportive of yours, and that it will start to help to establish some land value.
I understand. It's not totally connected. But they do. When you go down this road, there is a connection, and I guess I'm trying to look ahead.
Let me.
I don't want half the solution. I want to at least put the framework that we know we're gonna include all these elements as we move forward. That's all.
I certainly agree with that, don't want to do anything under. This motion is not focused on any building anybody's living in. This is focused on vacant, dilapidated, so no one's gonna be forced out of a house and no one's living. The people that own those properties need to have an opportunity to use them. And if we know that the houses around there are gonna be impacted positively, then one of the sets of beneficiaries of fixing that house will be the people that are around there. Perhaps we can find ways that they can participate.
And the people who own the house, even though they don't live there, guarantee that 80% of them are cash for. That's all. That's all I'm going. Okay, let's move forward. I just want to put my point out. That's all.
If we are quantifying this number with an appraiser or, something that we can really take to financial institutions and other institutions, are we then also impacting the homeowners that live there and do take care of their houses negatively by increasing their taxes because of the values of their house?
Well, I think another way to phrase that question is, would a homeowner care to live next to a vacant, dilapidated building because it depresses the value of their home and therefore taxes? I think we should ask them that before we proceed. But I think that's a question that we can have. Just as if someone owns a piece of property, when you're at the end of something else to fix up, taxes on the property.
And if we establish a TIF district, the property owner is assessed as a part of that district.
And if it's owner occupied, then 15% max, 5 years. I like we can go up. There's a construction project. But if you're living in a house, then one thing is. I'm happy to talk about this more, but motion, second.
I thought they had a second.
Haven't heard.
No, there's nothing a second on that one.
I'll second it.
Okay. I think we probably need to have more discussion on that one.
I agree.
We have to figure out who this committee is gonna be and how we're gonna figure out who's gonna get these numbers and how we're gonna figure it out.
Mr. Chairman, I think under Robert's Rules of Order, you have the opportunity to appoint a committee or to request people to volunteer. I would assume, I make a motion that passes. It's whoever that is will come back with some recommendations about how to do it.
Okay.
And I'm happy for anybody who wants to participate in that, want to participate. I don't think if you don't want to participate in that, why am I suggesting it?
Okay, motion. Any other discussion? It's been seconded. All in favor? Any opposed? Okay. All right, that's gonna, so we're gonna have to have a committee for that. That approved? Is there anybody volunteering to be on that committee?
Stacy and
Jody, Stacy, and Elise? Okay.
This is the same as the last committee.
Brad's not on the.
Bill's asking to be recruited in this issue, but
Bill, you can be recruited in anything you want.
some things you know.
Okay, thank you. Next order of business is going to be our vision statement. Now, Lee sent this out in an email.
I made copies. I'll have those around. No, and that only went to the committee itself. Yeah. All right. Yeah.
Have a copy.
Yeah.
All right. I'm not seeing this, so we need to make sure that my email is correct.
Well, no, it did not, because I only sent it to the chair.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and our committee, so
Gotcha.
that's where it went. Yeah. So we had a group, Dick, Stacy, Fred, myself, and Jody. Jody was unable to participate.
In our rescheduled one.
Yeah, we had one and then we had to reschedule. But anyway, I think we had a really good discussion and I certainly want Stacy, Dick and Fred to chime in. In getting to that vision statement, we also identified key or core values that we felt helped shape the vision statement. And also we talked about what kind of outcomes did we want to see? Because when you talk about a vision statement, you're talking about what do you want to see as your outcome. So the vision statement draft for y'all's approval or not, to be a diverse historic community that fosters opportunity, respects its past, embraces its present, and prepares for its future to the benefit of its stakeholders.
And all on the committee agrees?
And our four.
I don't
That's-
disagree.
Yeah. Dick. Okay, and Stacy. That's what we came up with. Wait, y'all forgot. That's why I sent it to y'all.
Do you have anything preference to the statement, because it says to be diverse historic community? Are you describing something? What are you describing? That was my only question.
How we want the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons to be.
Okay, so
We could,
we could add that in.
sure, we can absolutely
So
do that.
You know what we're talking about.
In terms of our focus of
Yeah,
the
yeah.
two areas that we're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah. That's my only,
Okay, good point.
that's my only comment.
For the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons to be a diverse historic community that fosters opportunity, respects its past, embraces its present, and prepares for its future to the benefit of its stakeholders.
Move with that.
Hmm.
I move with that.
I'll second it. Any other discussion?
I think as part of that statement, though, I think we should, I like the key outcomes. Particularly. I think that's important. Wonderful.
You wanna discuss those or,
No,
okay, you just wanna adopt?
I just want them published somewhere so that we can see it.
Before
Right.
we move to adopt, can I make a point of comment?
Hmm.
Is there an action verb rather than be that we could use a little better? I don't want to get deep into any syntax, but to be is pretty
Or not?
general. Shakespearean. It just,
I welcome any
promote.
suggestions.
I don't, just to be is not really.
Well, remember with the vision statement, it's
It's not
what
a
you're gonna
mission.
become.
It's not a mission,
To
right.
become,
To become.
to become,
I'm
to become.
There we go.
And here's the reason why we talked about this. Instead of planning today, it's good, because these neighborhoods don't meet this criteria because of their becoming that, they're not that now. Are they not now culturally diverse? Are they not now fostering opportunity and respecting their past?
That doesn't mean they're not it now, Dick. But if we say to become, when we came up with to be, that was a statement of the moment. So in 5 years, to be a diverse historic community. But if you say to become,
What
then
is it?
Maintain.
to maintain the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons,
Continue to be.
to continue to be.
To make, no, but the,
Takes you from
that
where
the
you are.
Northwest Quadrant and that the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons maintain a diverse historic community that fosters.
I mean, I'd actually like to see it prove in its diversity.
But it's maintaining, it's not talking about degrees, it's just,
Right.
in other words, it exists now and it maintains it in various degrees.
I think we continue.
I like the continue.
Yeah.
I think continue to be the probably way to write it out.
Okay.
That's proper action.
Will you accept that change?
Can you read it?
All right, we have a motion and we have a second, with the changes proposed.
I did.
Oh, you did, Mike
I,
did.
and I accept the change.
Okay, so it will now read as, for the Northwest Quadrant and Old Commons to continue to be a diverse historic community that fosters opportunity, respects its past, embraces its present, and prepares for its future to the benefit of its stakeholders.
Thank you.
Did I bring this?
Yes.
All in favor of motion as with changes? Any opposed? That.
Thank you.
Loves here.
Apologize for having to leave early.
Yes, so I'm looking at the clock and saying,
We're holding a few committees, they need volunteers.
okay,
So that'll be in our minutes then?
yes.
All right.
Okay. Okay. So the city has provided us with the properties. And Stacy has a list, has had a list of properties.
Right, and we have the original list that the cities that we did, or not list, but evaluations. Yeah.
Would you mind if Ken,
No, not at all.
replace my first seat? Because there, he has a lot of,
Yes, a lot of
Yeah.
info.
Yeah. And we have Mike and Bill Burton Workers list that they had given us as well.
One of the questions that I didn't see right under the list I've seen is, are we gonna ask the owners if they want to participate in something, or we're just going to choose them?
No. No, we are, what I'd like to do, my thought right now is to, let's get we have a list. Let's make sure we have all the information about who owns these properties. Because that's a biggie, I mean, and that's not a hard thing to do. To look this up, go to the county real property and get a bing, get a bang, there's the information. The question is, which list do we want to work with also? Are we going to go the city's list is shorter than Stacy's list.
Stacy.
So I have a question. How do y'all come up with the list of vacant structures?
So
The criteria.
Yeah, what's the
we
criteria?
based it on, does it fit the city's unfit for habitation order? So we looked at things, condition of the building, did it have electric, did it have water on it? Was it serviced by water? Was it clearly not habitable, sanitary issues, a whole slew of issues. And, you know, I'm not gonna sit here and tell you this is all inclusive, there are probably some of this. But it's pretty comprehensive, and they're generally the properties that we are having problems with. That we're having issues with getting maintenance done, or identifying folks. When I have contact with folks, keeping them stabilized per the ordinance. Then if it doesn't meet some of the other criteria, it didn't make that list. That makes sense?
Yes.
Now, what list is that you have right there?
So it's just a list that like I've done over the past few years and I didn't know if we were gonna like, so I've got some questions about the current list and then I have some maybe additions. But based on your criteria, maybe the additions shouldn't be on there,
So
so.
I think part of the confusion lied with when the planning staff and HBF originally went out and created a list. It was called the vacant. Abandoned is really not appropriate in this context because properties are not abandoned.
Right.
If if somebody walks away from it, which would mean it would be abandoned, then it's getting sold at tax sale. So we really have vacant and dilapidated properties.
Right.
As they pertain to our current city ordinances. And so we revamped the list when I was tasked with it. We revamped it to reflect those things because we didn't otherwise define or have criteria for what a vacant and abandoned property meant in any of our ordinances. So we deferred to the unfit for habitation ordinance, and then we built a new list based on that. So simply because a property is vacant does not mean it's dilapidated or unfit for habitation, it's just vacant.
So I do have a couple that I do think should be on this list, and I think that there are some that don't need to be on this list.
Well, in some of, that list is an ongoing living document, right? So you were always happy to put more on it. If you have some, not happy to put more on. That's not.
I'm happy to put more on.
We're willing to go out and look at these properties, and if we think they meet that criteria, we certainly would put them on the list. Some are ongoing renovation at this time, and I leave them on until they're done. So some.
Okay, got it.
Maybe,
Yeah.
and this is not a
They're
list,
biased. the ones
right,
I'm
this is
working on.
not a list that I pick up every week, it's, Sometimes, I look at it occasionally, as I see projects get completed, I'll go back and look at the list. There's no set time period on how will I do that, it's sometimes just. I pick it up, take a look at it, I clean it up, I add, I take away, it all depends on. How fluid things are in here.
Much time we have for.
How much time? It goes on the list of things to do, so.
Yeah, and so these are the properties too that we then went out and surveyed, when we did, the city and HBF.
Right.
And came up with, our proposal to the city.
Right, that was based on what are some of the worst properties, what are getting the most attention? Do we have contact with owners and a rapport with them? Are some willing to try to pull the trigger a little sooner than others? And so those are the type of properties, we went out and surveyed and took a harder look at just to try to put together some sense of how to proceed if and when this thing occurs.
And then, you had said a number earlier of how many vacant, and dilapidated properties you knew of, and it was 100 and something, 140.
No,
What was it?
I didn't say it. What I said was that the reports we heard, 40 to 60, 50% of those were air.
Oh, okay.
What the number is,
40.
I don't know.
Okay,
I haven't seen it.
okay, I just misunderstood that.
Question. So I do think, and maybe we need to talk about this, that this group not only looks at dilapidated properties, but also vacant properties, because there's a number of properties that, yeah, they don't look dilapidated, but nobody's lived in them for forever because they're heirs property and they have all the issues. They're not dilapidated yet, but
Gonna be.
they're gonna be.
They're working their way.
I think I don't disagree with you in whole, but I do in a little bit, is because I know there are a lot of properties here that I know the owners deeded to them, it's not an heir's property. And they either they just choose to hang on to it because it was grandmother's property or uncle or aunt. And they don't want anybody else living in it, that happens. We have some folks who bought a property or inherited it, it's been deeded to them, they just don't have the funds to do anything but maintain it to the minimal standards. So those are some of the properties that sit vacant that way.
And maybe they need help fixing it up.
Right.
And I think that's part of what
That's
we're
fine.
here.
Yeah,
Yes.
to reach out to them to see if they want help with XYZ or.
Yeah, and on this list, 910 Harrington is contributing.
That's the one.
It's contributing.
910 Harrington.
910, wasn't that the one that,
That's Mr. Lennon's property.
yeah.
It was originally, there was a conflict with the address.
13023.
So it's really 1303. Mr. Lennon has been in recently to the HDRC to get information on how to proceed with improving that house, getting that house back into right at the corner of Green.
Across the street from me.
Yeah, so yes, he is someone I've been talking to for years. they're finally in a position now to come in and do some corrections on it, get it out. Well, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, I think they were working with Jeremiah. So that's one that, you know, behind the scenes is starting to percolate. It just hasn't taken the step to where they've got permits. So, improvement, but it's trending in the right direction.
And I just have a question about the list, because I'm not, as a student in all of this, as most of you are, but the zoning codes, I don't know what those are, what those mean.
The zoning is just telling you what kind of neighborhood it is. It's
what does it
the
say?
T, the
That's
T
what it's
four
saying.
neighborhood,
What is that?
T4 neighborhood is just a general neighborhood area of town. A T4HN is the historic designation on that particular property.
So T4N.
It's not necessarily a historic home, but it's part of the historic neighborhood designation.
So T4N has a little bit of multi-use. And T4HN is more just pure residential use.
You know, when people ask questions, this is what we have to be sensitive to. People ask questions like, what's the zoning? You have to be a little more some explanatory about it to let them know what it means. Because I understand what's coming from, because a lot of people, but what is T4? What does it mean? Let's try to respond to it in a very basic, some way that they can grasp it.
So T4HN would be like residential, like single family.
The city
I can
must
use
have,
that.
the city must have a definite,
We
when they
do.
use these terms.
Yes.
They must have something.
Stacy, the historic neighborhood district pretty much only allows single family houses.
Right.
That's it.
Yeah, but why T, why
Multi-family.
the 4, why the N?
So they, I think, selected, I don't know why they selected some properties as T4N and why they selected some properties T4HN. I think that was prior to me being here, but they tried to follow the historic district, but not in all cases.
I think what Scott's asking is what does the T mean and what does
Yes,
the 4 mean?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
T means transect and 4 means.
That's not even 2 I would know.
It's a form-based code, 4 means 4 stories essentially, but
Never knew that.
You can go up to 4
you can go
stories,
up to 4 stories,
Which is really debatable.
which is it's an urban district. I can't tell you why they came up with T4HN in the downtown. That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And there's like T5 DC, which is like essentially supposed to be 5 stories, but it's not. And you have
So-
T5 UC, which is 5 stories, but
and transect basically means what?
transect is, there's like a graphic, but they basically show from a rural development pattern to a very urban development pattern, like in a big city. And so there's like your T1 is when, you know, it's like, you know, like the rural pattern. And then it goes up, T2 is a little higher, and then T3 is like suburban. T4 becomes urban, T5 becomes more urban. Then you're in a big city, you can go even higher, so.
I'll get you a copy.
It's something that came up like 20 years ago and then they changed it. But there's only like,
Did they
there's
update
only
it?
40 or 50 cities in the country that have a form-based code.
Sadly.
So last time they updated the transaction or the coding.
This was all done in 2017.
Okay,
17 was the latest.
well, that's when they created
That's
the,
confusing everybody.
This is the Lauren Kelly here. Lauren Kelly.
The Lauren,
Yeah, and.
Might never be.
Okay,
yeah,
The history here is,
I hate it.
what happened in the US, we didn't have building codes for a long period of time, and there was a period of time when they were building industrial buildings, other kinds of buildings right next to residential neighborhoods. Town of Euclid, Ohio, decided they didn't like that much, and so Euclid passed the first series of zoning laws to separate commercial and residential. That was called Euclidean zoning. Euclidean zoning has been replaced by form-based zoning. Form-based zoning is the type of, instead of R for residential, you get T4 part. The transect, just as Kurt was saying, they started with a transect in the most urban and then went out to rural areas. So the particular zoning category that we'll find, the 2 focus areas we're working on, will be what the city, at the time the planning commission and the city council approved it, they thought best encompassed what was appropriate for that district at that time in those circumstances. as this group looks at this, if we have a reason to believe there's a different zoning category that should apply within those areas, I would think that would be something to talk about. But it is intended to be both protected, what's there, and perspective of what should be coming there. And it is sometimes a little bit out of date because things have changed.
But some of it from a building perspective, construction wise serves a really good purpose. We don't wanna drive down one of the beautiful streets in the northwest quadrant and look at garage doors facing that street all day, every day. And, you know, so they think there's a lot of benefit to having some sort of rules, but they don't have to get so weedy that we're.
There's a lot.
One base code,
I've
yeah.
talked for a long time. But the important thing to note is what we stated, and then the final thing is the historic overlay is on top of that. And that gives discretionary power based on the 7 integrities and it's the Secretary of Standards to the HRB to basically approve every exterior change to a property. And so even though there are the zoning rules, really superseded by the historic review board, has got the discretionary power to do everything. So they're rules, but they got.
Historic
they're one-
review board does not have authority to change.
They do not.
They go to the zoning board.
They do not. So you have a right to the uses and the setbacks. To get anything approved, you still gotta get their, sorry.
Okay, Scott, did that mostly answer your question?
See, I'm certain that Scott's referencing, in the old days, you had an R2 or
Right.
R something.
Right, you knew that was residential.
With that,
Yeah,
and then you had
that was
and
utility.
something
Yep.
neighbor, and then you had a C commercial.
Right.
See, things that people can relate, you have to
You
make.
can't
things
relate to
relatable.
it, yeah.
Right, that actually makes sense.
Yeah.
That's
All right, you happy? Ish?
Happy York.
Okay, question, do we want to try with this list to go for first? It would make sense to me, we go for the low hanging fruit. That we find the homeowners that are willing to say, yeah, I could use some help with this. Or the property owners that say, yeah, I really need some help with this. And we're trying to work at getting them hooked up so that we can start whittling down this list, low hanging fruit. Or do we want to start on the other end of the spectrum or somewhere in the middle? You know, the harder ones where people are resistive and try and convince them that they should take advantage of what we have to offer.
I think we should show results by
Well-
starting with the easier low hanging
But
fruit.
I agree with that to an extent because, for example, 810, 812, which is probably the most significant vacant and dilapidated structure we have within the district. That one is Congress. That one is getting worse and worse. And the roof is probably not gonna.
That's this one, right?
Can I add something to this, please? I went through a study and it's located, the property is located on Goose Street. It's a cutting,
908?
it's, yeah, I guess you listed as 908.
The blue duplex,
Wait, the blue one?
that's the second one with the hole in the roof.
I'm actually, I'm in regular contact with that family.
Cunningham family?
No, Sanford family.
Sanford, yes, Miss Helen Sanford.
Yep, she's in Florida.
Yeah.
Her daughter Alice has been in touch with me.
Okay,
Actually, she just texted me last week.
I'll be willing to help you with that.
They're part of the complexity of all of this is they all believe they're going in better shape than what they did. Right, so initially, we go back 6 to 8 months and they hired people to put a roof on the building. And they got a permit for it. Well, they didn't do their diligence and it was just to reshingle the roof. Well, how are you gonna reshingle that roof when there's no roof left? And so part of what I do and part of how I help protect those properties too, is when I saw that, I immediately reached out to the family and said, whoa, wait a minute here. You need to check your invoice to see if it includes replacing the joist and the sheathing, because if that's the case, they need a bigger permit than just reshingling the roof. And so it didn't include those things. And as such, what happened is some company comes from out of state, Savannah, they get a temporary business license to shingle a roof, and then they start hitting these folks with all the overages. new sheeting, so that $15,000 roof now becomes a $40,000 roof and going automatic before they even put one single nail in. So that's part of what I do in communicating with these folks, is helping them understand that you need a more in-depth survey of what your property is and how it can survive, and what you need to do with it. And that's the painstaking thing they're going through right now, which makes it more difficult because they're all out of state and they don't trust contractors to tell them the truth if they're not there and kind of giving eyes on them.
But do they trust a family member who I know lives on St. Helena?
Yes, if I could convince them that, you know,
I'll try to work with you on that.
working through you, that you have trustworthy folks, I think that goes a long way. They just feel like everybody who goes and looks at it is trying to rip them off. Now, in that vein, a lot of folks think $50,000 goes a long way to renovating their properties, where if they're lucky, it'll do a roof.
Right.
And
Or a
maybe secure the envelope prior to the real renovation taking place. And we're talking about properties that have had water infiltration for 20, 30, 40 years. So, you know, while some of these look really straight, when you actually get down to the bones of them, the interior floor joists are gone, the flooring's gone. There's a whole slew of issues with these things that just
And that's why,
compound the cost.
that's why I'm a bad
complexity.
neighbor in the neighborhood, because I think things get to a point of diminishing returns and it doesn't. Anyhow, I'll be quiet. I'll wait.
But you just, you hit on what's probably the biggest problem within the district is people not understanding that by hanging on to it in the condition that it is, it's just gonna continue to deteriorate to the point that it's demolition by neglect.
Let me put it.
Yeah.
So to that point, I'm not sure that this list is a complete list of people that we want to talk to, because a lot of these are like way gone. But there are others that aren't way gone and that would be eligible for programs if that is the intent of what we're doing with lists.
But if we go with the low lying fruit, we could go after the ones that probably can't save, and is that my understanding?
No,
Because the programs that we have,
And
the programs that we have can't renovate,
988 Street.
well, maybe, but definitely not,
810,
810, 812 Congress Street. Not saying that we don't talk to them, but I do think that there are other houses that need to be
Sure.
on the list, because there are people who, it's been a while since they've been in the house and it's kind of getting to the point where but they could be eligible for programs if we could figure out about the title.
well, I think,
Or
you know,
other
when you
things.
talk about the title, that property per se is one of the easiest because it's a clear title to it.
Are you talking about
George.
George Singleton's property in 10 to 12, right? And his daughter has been a regular contract as well. And they really want to do something with that property. But again, they're faced with the complexity of understanding what that property looks like inside, and it's a mess. I've been in it.
And money.
Yeah, money. So you essentially need, on the onset, from my perspective, is you need some type of engineer or really good historic contractor to go in and assess the interior of that building to determine actually what it needs to start stabilizing it, to actually conduct the appropriate renovation to it, right? And then once you get into that, if you have that plan, then we would require them to come in with some other plans, conceptual drawings.
Right.
Perhaps engineered plans to stabilize and rebuild roofs and wall structures. And then take it a step further, and these are not owner occupied, so none of the grants we ever find apply to those, right? Because they're stuck in referred homes for some of these folks. And it's not that they're living large, it's just that these are the family homes that were left to them, right? And so they're doing their best to maintain them. Then we get into the actual nuts and bolts of restoring some of these homes, and this one is significant, so the cost for it will be extraordinary.
Right.
They have to put wood clapboards back on and remanufacture those metal shingles that are on the roof and rebuild wood windows and doors, and this drives the cost, so economically, that it's sticker shock to some of these folks who are just trying to enjoy the property. Right?
So you have who owns all these buildings? We have who owns.
Most of them I do, I have some contact, I have contact information for a number of them.
Dick, you had a series of historic structures reports or engineering studies done on several properties a year or so ago.
The structural engineers I talked to used to do them because of social changes. I got some, a couple of home inspection guys told me about that. Property they had.
Oh,
Okay, clarify something for me, because I don't know the answer. Most of these funding places, funding sources we're looking at to rehab these homes, help rehab these homes. If people are getting them fixed up to sell them, what is the end requirement that they must occupy that house at the end of the time, or?
I think with the Bailey bill, there is a certain requirement in there.
Bailey bill transfer.
Is it, that transfers?
Somebody's gonna own and live in it, though, doesn't have to be the same home.
That's right, that's
Can't
it.
be rental property.
Yeah,
Can't be a rental property.
right, and neither was
So they-
doing something.
That's what the Bailey bill.
Here, let me sort of say.
No.
Let me try to answer the question I think you're asking. Are there going to be sources of funds that will do a significant number of these houses with it back in shape and achieve what we want to do? And if so, what will be returned with those funds? That you were asking?
That's exactly what I'm asking.
There will be 4 questions they will always ask. Who am I loaning money to or granting to? What are you gonna do with the money? How are you gonna get paid back? And what record do you have having done this before? They will always ask them the question. So if we were to do that, who would be the borrower? Let's say we got $20 million worth of projects, get $5 million out of what Tom refers to equity-like sources. We need 15 million. If we had 15 million sitting here today, how many of these houses could we fix up in a reasonable fashion that could repay those funds? And what would be the regulatory, personal, and contractual relationship we have to go through to get to the point where we use that 15 million? It's no financial institution want to get you a $15 million line of credit. We only use $500,000 a year. And so story. So to answer your question, all of that will depend on our ability to show some velocity and some volume of engaging these people. That's very different than the repair programs that are currently out. We'll hear about them at our next meeting, options there. As relates to the vacant and dilapidated houses, questions going to come up, and I don't think we'll be able to avoid that, which is if party A owns this plot and there's a dilapidated or vacant house on it, is a piece of dirt worth more, is the house gone, or is it worth less? That question will get asked by those folks, but they've been looking at it at the lab. Secondary issue is the cost to restore a property. It's significantly higher than the cost to build something else that's compliant and works for the owners of that site. Who should pay the difference between cost that would be accruing, the benefit would be accruing to the owner, and that additional cost to protect the building might be significant back in the community? That answer, we're going to have to, you'll need to get to that answer before your funding sources show up.
So, I'm sure y'all are aware, but on the corner, right across from where you had me docent, right across on Washington, and I don't know what.
1202 Green Street.
Is that was where Docent did, or the one Ethan James just?
Ethan James.
So Ethan James just bought this, Dean Muscle is helping him with it, they are going to privately fund all of these studies on that one structure. I'm sure they would share all of those with us, but it would be very interesting to me to know. He is an investor certainly, but he's also a Beaufortonian, he lives somewhere in the middle. On that, I think it would be very interesting to evaluate the costs that he is going to incur, knowing that he is looking for a return on investment like any family would. And knowing he will.
Mike's, he's not there anymore. Mike Tony's son-in-law is their other partner.
There are examples where this has been done.
Sure,
Yeah.
but I'm saying
Yeah.
the current,
Building Boston Stacy at 41.
I mean, I see right now, I mean. Even our structural engineering costs are all over the map, so knowing what a true investment looks like from. Whether it's an heirs property or not, whether it's just a person that needs help with their house, those having current real numbers, which concerns me a little bit about assigning. Everybody benefits by $100,000 in this square, that number will change in the 24 months it'll take us to get there. That's what I mean, and their numbers, I would hope we would see those fluctuate up. I mean, if we took the last 6 years, if we'd had this conversation 6 years ago, none of us would have a leg to stand on, because we wouldn't have any accurate information and fluctuation of property value.
Well, I'm glad you're gonna be on that committee. Make it back to the- make it back to the reins.
Yeah, I mean, and we have to have one no matter how we shake it, but I think looking at real-time numbers, like that structural engineering on that house and the evaluation of that particular property is going to be significant and representative of some of these other buildings that we are going to run into and want this.
Talking about Mr. Gus House or 12 on the corner.
1202.
Mason and Green,
No, of course,
No.
Church and Green,
Yeah.
13 Green. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
Right.
Gus House.
yeah, it just,
right across from Pruitt.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I get a question, but we got that house.
Yeah. I wanna go back to the George Simmons property, that building that they just. I see, if you're talking about fixing that house up and bringing it to standards, you're talking almost $1 million.
I bet.
As far as I'm
I bet.
concerned,
100%.
I'm seeing, and I'm going with our limited experience. That you're talking, so we need to become real about what
Right.
you're wanting to accomplish. And there has to be some adjustments somewhere to make this practical and feasible.
Or to gain that trust to show that we are here to actually do work that
And
makes
plus,
sense.
if you know, put that in there, how would that family, the question on that, okay? If I'm gonna keep this. Yeah, how do I pay that back? How do I manage that? What do I get done? Yeah. All those things come into play, and I'm.
Or is it one of those that we just say, you know, this, there's no, we can't do this.
Can't say
It's, you can't save it. You know, it's beyond saving. Where do we get the funds to tear it down? And do we have, you know,
No.
talk to the owners and stuff? And I know Stacy, I saw you twitch.
not tear that down.
But, I mean, if you're.
I get what you're saying, and, you know, and it's been a part of discussion for a while. But I think the goal of this committee is, let's first look at what we can do and the difference we can make before we start talking about what we can't do.
Well, all this doesn't matter because we're not the owners of these properties. We have to talk to the people that own them. We
Well,
can make
that's
these decisions. for
Yeah.
them,
And
Whether
that's part of can do.
save or take down or anything.
Low-hanging fruit is people want to participate.
Yeah.
We want to help the people that want help, right? That's the
Yeah.
goal. We want to help the people that want help.
No, on this list, who
Okay,
knows?
okay,
And
hang on,
that's-
there's too many people talking at once.
Good information.
Sue,
Okay, so taking, this is part of a 2024, and it has the 810, 812 Congress Street houses in here. When I was looking through this, what really slapped me in the face was under the integrity. The integrities from a historic viewpoint was like as high of a value that they could put on these houses.
Yeah.
So when I looked through here and how many of them, I mean, as far as how badly they're destroyed, that is on the absolute lowest end, you know, I mean, they're total. But from the historic viewpoint, so I think the question comes down to, it doesn't seem reasonable to spend $1 million on the property, and certainly the owners themselves of the property, whoever they are, could probably never afford to pay for it unless they're really into that. So how do we measure, and I'm not saying we have to have this answer today, but it goes into the whole formula. How do you measure the value of it's been rated historically as being something that wants to be preserved versus letting it go? Or do you say it has to, whatever gets built there has to look like the historic, but it's not gonna be the historic, you know, is there places in there that can be compromised?
go ahead, Stacy.
So I'm just trying to drill down, because I know we're limited time, like what do we want to accomplish in the next 20 minutes?
Right.
Because we know that the Singletons probably would take $1 million if we could give it to them, right? We know that, like, we don't need to talk to them, like, check,
Right,
okay? Like, first two ones on here, I know they don't want help,
Yeah, let me pose a
you know,
question.
like, so
Who's
what?
gonna contact these people, and what are you gonna ask them?
Well-
You're gonna say, would you like for us to give you $1 million? Would you
No,
like your house fixed up? That. If we don't have any money, we don't have any resources, but we'd like to know how you like to proceed. Who's gonna do it and what are they gonna ask?
Okay, so what I wanted to do in this meeting was we're gonna take the city's list then. And you said you have quite a bit of information on who owns these now.
Put them all together.
So if we all take about 4 of the regular members of this committee, call these people up and say, okay, so what are you recommending?
So here's what I recommend. I recommend that if we already know what has been communicated with these people and who they are, because I think everybody around this table knows the majority of the people that own these homes. So the first, and then if we think that they need to be contacted because they haven't been contacted, or we don't know if they would accept help, then, and we have programs that are available, or we might, I mean, just personally, I don't want to call them and say, we may have something in the future, but we don't know, right? So we, and 810, 812, we've already been talking to them.
Yeah.
710, 712, we know who owns that property. They don't want our help. 1304, same thing. 1305, not really sure. 1310, we know that person, nope. 1313, already been renovated. 1408, they want help. 9082, I would just go down, and between Ken and I, the rest of the people in here, we can kind of make a list of maybe who hasn't been contacted.
Right.
And then I do have others that I think should be on this list.
I think
Okay.
that's very
All
good.
right.
And once you contact them, what are you gonna say?
That's what I wanna know, what do you?
Right.
So this is what I did with the repair program. I mean, I just went around and said, hey, I'm Stacy Applegate with the Northwest Quadrant Neighborhood Association, and we have this repair program that's coming up. Just wanted to let you know in case you have any interest. You have to be at the city, blah, 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 blah,
How did it respond? Blah, blah, blah. No. Go ahead, Ken.
I can tell you, I've had these conversations with everyone I've had, I have contact for.
Okay.
Properties. And the conversation goes something like Stacy just explained. But it's always the city's looking at starting this program. Great, call me when the program's in place so we know what it is.
Right.
And we never have a program. So therein lies the problem. Is we don't know what this thing looks like. And I can tell you, just this is my perspective, that we could go a long way if we could figure out some way to help assess these properties for these folks.
Right.
Help them determine a path forward. Potentially give them some money towards the engineering and the drawings we know they need to have architecturally. Because those upfront are gonna run them $10,000 to $15,000. So that's where a lot of these things get stopgapped. And we don't ever make concession for any of these things. Except trying to figure out how to get that house looking what it should look like at the end of the day. And so, 0 to 100 is very murky for these folks. They
Okay.
just don't have a path forward.
We don't have anything to offer them.
Right.
That's why I was.
That's the problem. We don't really
And
have.
as our next meeting, we will talk to the people who have something to offer. Fred first.
Two things. Do the Ashby's still on the Charles Street property?
No, sir. That's
What
not
I'm asking.
by, Eustace Common.
I want to address me right now before we go. If you notice, I haven't been voting on any items because I'm not certain of my role. Now, according, I guess, to all the rules already, if you're an ex officio member, you can be ex officio with vote or without vote. I've taken the position that I've been established without vote. That's why I haven't been voting. So I want to be clear.
That's a position I understood. You and Bill were both in.
Yeah.
So I'm a non-voting ex officio.
Yeah.
Just want to be clear. Right? So you don't see me hold my hand. It's not that I'm not, and I don't have. Just want to clarify my role. Because there's some things that, yes, I want to help with, but if I don't want to overstep my bounds either.
You're-
Things I want to help with.
You're here as a senior advisor, basically. Okay, I won't.
No, that's better.
No, but a knowledgeable advisor. You and Bill are both here to help guide us
Okay.
and provide information that we may not have thought.
I don't need any more. I'm good.
Okay,
And so I just wanted to get clarity too, because when we were talking about offerings, I hadn't heard any offerings. We can come up with who we want to help, but what are we offering?
well,
So,
that's what we're gonna find out. We don't know yet.
Well, that's not how we go.
I mean, there's the South Carolina housing money.
Right, we're gonna talk about repairs.
Yeah.
We're gonna talk about the other, what you're referring to, repairs. And presentation on that next week. Those programs there. Problem, not fit. And I'm talking about those are not repair issues, that are vacant, dilapidated, and, what those programs address. That's different. So how are we going to address that is a separate question. The repair question is very important. The other question is, how do we help folks who have a house that's beyond the repair process, for them to do a significant replace, repair, under sort of circumstances, not repair, replace, renovate.
I don't know that we're at the place where we should call these people.
No, we're not.
Oh,
We're not.
Yeah.
I don't think we should ever call these people. I think we should ask these people, those people got a program, invite them to call us.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I didn't know that was gonna be our role. I guess we already defined what it was going to be, but I.
Well, then-
You all are in data collection. You're trying to understand the problem.
Yeah.
So let's understand. the
So
problem.
then I would ask the city to take this list and expand it a little bit for us. And if you talk to these people and whether they want help or not, let us know. If you haven't talked to them, that's fine, indicate that also.
Can I make a motion to form a subcommittee of, I don't know, Stacy and Fred to try to make this list with some meat behind it, the conversations that they've had over the years? Whoever else wants to, or can, yeah, whoever wants to serve on that, but have a subcommittee really address the meat of the list.
Could you do that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Cause you've already done the work and you know the people, like this is something we don't need to.
Ken, I know you're kind of a one-man show. Do you have time for that? And Kurt will help.
And Bill, has a-
I'll help.
Bill and Mike have a list.
Yeah.
too.
Okay,
Yes, Dick.
I want to tell you that we're sitting here in 2026, saying many of the same things we said in 2009.
Yeah.
The issue at hand is not which houses we first, because that has to do with the ownership, it has to do with problems, it has to do with what their wishes are, it has to do with availability of money. My hope for this group is that we can negotiate a $15 to $20 million financing arrangement. That financing arrangement, by virtue of the requirements of folks finding the money, will include things like, this is what it's going to project will cost, this is what the result will be, this is how we're going to get repaid for the portion that's debt. That means that whatever project we then get involved with, that pool of money will have to meet that criteria. There'll be some flexibility where we might have some averaging. But I don't ever see us having a significantly large pool of money to go out there and do the $1 million investments that will produce a $300,000 building. Those funds are very limited. Find a few of those funds, not much. So starting from the list of houses is interesting. It'd be nice to have a moment of time stamps as this what it was in April 2027. But in May 2027, some of those houses will have been restored, some will have been demolished, and some of those will be new owners. So I am never going to ask you what you knew about a house 5 years ago. I'm going to be asking you which one you expect to turn in the next 6 months. And keeping that information current, talking to us about where I think, well, and if we're successful finding those financings and doing the project with 5 to 10 buildings, other people will come to us because they're in under trust and us. And that is very different than saying to someone there's not a damn thing you can do with your property or their property, sell it to somebody else and then they can fix that with their own cash, which is what is happening. That's what Fred referred to, and that's Casey worried about. And that's part of our objective, teaching cultural and historic component. There are people who will be attracted to that, but they're not financially stupid people. They're financially responsible people that have to share. So I'm more concerned about putting money in the pile with a pro forma than I am about creating an individual story. That's why this is never really these things.
So is this committee independent to the city, or is this committee reporting our findings or whatever to the city? They make the decision. How does this work?
You are appointed by the city, and yes, you will, your recommendation, the recommendation, city council, so you are appointed by, officially sanctioned as, with the provide recommendations.
And I agree with that, unless, but my belief
Yes, sir.
is, there will be circumstances where we're doing something with a family's property. Here's why I can't remember the, 10 errors may feel great, one or two may be bad as, hence, this would happen. My experience with elected people is when one or two folks show up and start making a lot of noise, the elected people say, let's just leave this alone. Fine. So I view the role of this group to be honest people doing honest things to help the best of the mission statement we've adopted here. And that means being able to say to the city, we have talked to the mayor, we've talked to the rest of the family members. We're citizens of these two people concerned, address them fairly. And then the city council can say, we support the task force they've been on, well, it's straightforward and move like that. And then that noise starts to die down. And the city has a little asbestos between their ear ends and the people that can't make their goal. And we're that asbestos.
Okay, Stacy.
So getting back to like this list, because this list is they're pretty rough, right? So the criteria for funding, right? So how does that translate? Like, are there like criteria that we should be looking at that are actual doable homes? You know what I'm saying? Because you said that there would be criteria.
At some point, when we develop our criteria about the project we have, but it's help with it in the project development. That was the
Kind of, pretty much everybody on this list is the $1 million, $400,000 issue, okay, pretty much that's what this list is. So, and you're saying that people, the financing people might not look at this, we need a pro forma, so is there like a criteria that we should look at in order to determine what people we're gonna talk
That goes back to
to?
my low hanging fruit question.
Right, do you see what I'm saying?
I think you're being premature about that right now. I think that what we need to be, well, let me clarify what I mean by that. Is I don't think we need to be putting on each of these properties that the only thing that we can only do this building if it meets this pool of money, this bank's criteria, or this pool of money's criteria. I think we need to look at the buildings individually themselves and see what they need. And are they restorable based on whatever we as our small group come up with, that we want to go out and have these properties evaluated.
Is that what we're doing?
Is what the 10 properties that you were talking about?
We're blending a number of things.
Yeah, I'm kind of confused about what the to-do is from this, that's what I'm trying to get at, not that I disagree with anything that's been said, but.
I think
I don't
there
know
will be a ladder of decisions that we make. Forward.
Yeah.
Okay.
One of those decisions is trying to establish an estimate on the economic impact of building around what we work on. Another one is trying to find an estimate of what's going to take to quiet title for people, because that's not currently available to them. Out of that will flow the opportunity to do things, but if all the great economic ones that fit right into the financial model of Ayers property, it won't matter, we can't do anything. So when we do that, then we will have, as if we get additional answers to some additional questions, the opportunity to sit down with financial structure, put together a proposal we think makes sense. And take that. They will look at things like, is the city supported? Is there equity participation in this? Are there other sources of funding? Is there someone here who's capable of managing this, managing those properties and seeing that we get repaid? Who is that going to be? And what criteria that? We've got to answer all of those questions. Now, over at the Freedmen's Arts District, which you've been very helpful in, you've seen that we've restored some properties that we purchased. We've restored properties from people that have long time interest in those properties. We have provided some management oversight of how to collect rents, pay taxes, do things, that process. So the purpose of those was to create demonstrations so that somebody coming in and look at it and say, yeah, this can work, this can work. We've got measurable results, multiple years back to Kirk, just like we took that to houses in single cell, a big we think bringing those folks will be in. So if I were to theorize where I would see this happen, and I'm often wrong, and I suspect I am, you're not just, well, if we were to say a TIF district is reasonable because property values are going to go up, successful doing this within our focus areas. In addition to a TIF district, there may be an opportunity for a municipal improvement district, there may be a special tax district, there may be a whole number of series of grants. Let's say out of that group, we cobble what looks like $5 million worth of finance. Not that we pull down and then write a check that's available for that. Once we've got that, we can then go to financial institution. We'd like for you to provide a financial institution a 75% match to like 15 million for you for the total pool of 20. And that person is going to say, well, what's the criteria on the houses you work on and the ones you don't? And my response will be, if I like them, we're going to work on the house. But no, we'll need to give them a financial criteria. And the dilemma is going to come, as you have rightly identified, and as everyone else here knows, if you got a house, it's going to take $1 million to fix. Reality is that's a non-economic decision, so you're going to have a non-economic source of funding, or otherwise that house is going to continue to deteriorate until it's legally gone.
Yep.
Now, I say this with some experience. You and I talked about this years ago. Our family bought a property in Washington Street within Project Children, 9 famous cities. We bought that from a couple who was trying to the lady there had died, and the other person they were trying to do something with it. They gave up. We bought it, and then we thought we'd do something. Richard Grayco donated donated building materials at cost. Allison Ranger provided architectural services at no expense. And Russ Diller agreed to do the building at half of what he normally charged. But the value of that building after we met the requirements built it would have been about 40% below what the cost was to do that, even with those discounts and donated numbers. So as a result, we didn't do it. United Way did not do it. When that happened, then we sold it to somebody else who thought they could do something with it. And over 6 or 8 months, they get frustrated not getting through the process. Lo and behold, after sitting on that site for about 80 or 90 years, that winter, for some reason, people started taking the boards and using it for firewood. So that by the time spring got, what was left was the foundation of the house, part of the fireplace, and now there's a new building there. That may be demolition by neglect, it may be demolition by intent, it may be had a lot of firewood needs that some years we never had before. These houses are headed to that place if we don't find an economic solution for many of them. And it'll be harder to find a non-economic solution. But not fixing the economic opportunity doesn't mean that's bad for the non-economic opportunity. It means some of those that are economically viable now will drop into being not economically viable if we don't want to address it.
So, our takeaway?
If it's okay, I think Dick's vision, she's been obviously thinking about it for a long time. It's I think what we're talking about is a break in this group of what you want to do in the future. Because the previous goals have been, maybe we get 50 grand, maybe we get 100 grand, maybe we get 150 grand. How do we want to prioritize? Well, because that's what the city might have available.
Right, that's what
Prioritize,
this is.
who do we need to contact? Prioritize this, we got like maybe $100,000, right? That's where that's, I think, what we're all coming in here with, and I think what Mr. Stewart's trying to envision is a different model, which has different sources of funding, which is not just based on the city putting up very limited amount. I know with the budget this year, I don't think there's gonna be a lot of money. We're talking about, just stabilizing the structure, maybe build it, maybe put a roof for like 1 house a year, right? So I think this is, a big question for the group, is you wanna go for creating this kind of vision kind of plan, or do we want to just stick with kind of the low hanging fruit, just do a few houses a year? You've got to
And that's why I mentioned earlier
I don't know.
what were our offerings?
Sure.
Because what do we have?
I'm sorry, but I didn't see anything different than that, because, the mayor said to me the other day, oh, we got $100,000 to do something. Do what?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to come across like that. But if we're gonna look at the totality of the problem, then let's outline what it is, and let's try to bite off what we can chew. All right, and if what we can't chew, let's put it out there and say, look, this needs to be addressed in another forum. or some other way. I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it, because we are looking at the neighborhood, we are looking, if you look at the vision, if you really take a look at the vision and what we're trying to do, it has to be a little bit broad. It's not just one solution. There are multiple things that have to occur. Heirs, cash flow, bill, all those things. So I'm saying, let's be comprehensive about what we're doing. That's all, simple as that,
Yes.
period.
All right.
Me too.
I think we need a list of programs. I think we need a list
We'll
of
get that next
houses
week. We'll
and
get that next week. I'd like you to do, skip the city this week and Kirk this week and refine the list of houses.
Are we saying next week or next?
Yeah.
Next month.
Okay.
Thanks, Dick.
I will give you, thank you.
All right.
I make the motion that we adjourn.